Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show. Another exciting show and definitely another exciting guest. Today, you recognize the smile, you recognize the glasses, you recognize her platform on social media. We have with us my five-star salute to one of the most beautiful ladies retired from the military, the one, the only Miss Darlene Greene. Darlene, what's going on?
Hey, Andre, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great now that you're on the air with us after several times.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we keep connecting here. We'll figure it out sooner or later. But
We're gonna be besties before long, aren't we?
hey, that's if the universe got it like that, that's exactly what's going to happen. Before we
Right.
get started, Darlene, you got a beautiful military career, but tell the viewers exactly who Darlene is before we go down your journey.
Before my military career, I grew up in a very golden childhood. I had great parents. My mom and dad have been married 64 years with a beautiful, loving relationship, very respectful and gorgeous. My dad was an Air Force colonel, so we moved a lot. Um, I did a lot of sports. I was very competitive. I went to, the Junior Olympics in swimming. I went to state championships in gymnastics. I three-lettered varsity sported. I was the president of the National Honor Society, the captain of the cheerleading squad. I did a lot of things in high school and loved I had a great youth, right? And then went to University of Virginia and was on a Navy scholarship there. So on a Navy ROTC scholarship, graduating then from UVA, became a commissioned officer. So right as I graduated, and that same weekend that I was commissioned officer, I married my college boyfriend, and my first marriage, unfortunately, was just I was too young, and he was a narcissist. So it was not a good match, and it took me a little while to get out of that. So it was emotionally and physically abusive. And once it became physically abusive, I got out as quickly as I could. And that was a challenge just to get out safely. So I left that relationship with some physical issues. I lost my thyroid, I had migraines, I had some health challenges as a result of the stress of living with a narcissist and the stress of trying to divorce and stay alive. Um, the second, then I launched through my Navy career, very successful. We can talk about that as you'd like. Second husband shaped a lot of who I am today. Was unfortunately also a narcissist and also physically and emotionally abusive. And I remember thinking, boy, can I pick them? How is it even possible that I could have done this twice and been so deluded by what the vision was that they presented? They're very, very slick in their marketing campaign. And so I had a tough time. That ex-husband I had two babies with, so it was not easy to extract, and it took really even more out of my health. So by the time I left that relationship, I was struggling mightily with 5 autoimmune disorders and challenges, single parenting and trying to be a commander in the Navy, and along the way 3 commanding officer tours. So I was really juggling a lot, and from someone who'd grown up with a father who was such a great role model and demonstrated integrity and honesty and good character, it just never dawned on me that there could be someone that was lying and so sophisticated about it and so good at it. And both of them were just that way. And so I learned a lot about my animal brain, and I had I had not trusted. I had hairs on the back of my neck that stood up and warned me against both of these men, and I didn't listen. I didn't pay attention, and I paid a dear price afterwards as a result of that.
Let me go here because there's actually three, but we won't talk about the third one until the conclusion.
Right.
Let's go down. And you're right. You come to listen to your story with the intro. You almost had a Brady Bunch type lifestyle. How could you mess up? It appears like how could you even mess up? You mentioned the word narcissist, and we hear this so often. I think it became the new pandemic word right out of the COVID. Everybody was labeled this. How did how did you know that the first husband had this?
I didn't. In fact, it didn't even dawn on me that he did actually until about 5 years ago. You know, I worked to get through that relationship, and I left it behind. I did do a lot of study around what could I have done differently? How did I miss this? I didn't know about the label. I didn't even when I divorced him, I didn't know of such a thing as narcissism. And I didn't know for my second one either until we were in with a therapist. And the therapist in the very first session said, I think you have narcissistic personality disorder to the ex. And he, he said, well, if I have that, then everybody should want it. Because everybody should want to be just like me, which is a very classic narcissistic response. But I had never heard of that, so I got some. She gave me some materials, and there was a checkbox, and he had every one. I remember reading marriage books and relationship books, and one day having this aha moment, and I said, "Oh, this is it. You don't have any empathy at all." And he said, "No." And I said, well, maybe you could develop some. And he said, I could just as soon levitate that chair. Like, not only did he not have it, not interested in it, and not interested in figuring out, but it turns out that actually many don't. And that's something that is a classic symptom.
Well, what I can't understand is you being highly decorative in the Navy, a female with strong leadership characteristics. How did you manage to camouflage? Damn, I like the way I use that word. how did you how did you camouflage all the shit that you was dealing with? Because what I'm saying here is you start getting sick from somebody else's um I'm gonna call it alleged diagnosis because I'm not a doctor. Uh uh but now you're becoming vitally ill behind this. How did you camouflage all this from a Navy that's strictly, you know, sir, ma'am, totally
Right.
driven? How did you camouflage all this?
So I really didn't. I mean, the migraines that I got were debilitating, and I was going to get MRIs that the Navy paid for. I would pass out and get taken off in an ambulance from work. I had I went into biofeedback training that the military offered to try to learn how to manage stress to try to prevent migraines. I had a thyroid removed as a result of the stress that came from this first husband. That was obviously a major surgery, not hidden at all. But I don't know that anybody would have known why. And you know, I didn't really talk about my ex or my husband issues or the divorce or all of that at work. At work, I'm at work. I'm very, very good at compartmentalizing. That doesn't mean I wasn't struggling with my health, but it does mean that I was not bringing it to work. And so the people around me might have known if I was struggling with my health, but they didn't know what I was dealing with my first ex. Now, my second ex was a different story. My second ex, you know, stole my purse, threw it over the fence, took they broke into my computer, had all my emails forwarded to him. It was my Navy computer. This was against the law. The FBI was brought in. The Navy Criminal Investigative Service was brought in. It all got examined. They had my computer in possession. They turned the rule off. He turned it back on. They turned it off. He turned it on. All of this. And I'm going through a court battle at this point. And so it was visible to my senior officers and not really the people that worked for me, but I certainly let my commanding officers know that I'm going through this. it was just too big. It was
Were,
just too big a deal.
were both of these individuals military?
They were. The first one was Navy, and the second one was Navy. The second one was a retired Navy SEAL.
Okay, you sure know how to pick them.
No, you're not wrong, Andre. And I'll tell you, when I was divorced of the second, I swore I was never dating again. Never. Like, never dating again, because I obviously do not know how to pick them, and I have very poor sense of judgment where
I
this
didn't mean
comes.
that out of hatred. I don't want the
Oh
viewers getting
no,
mad.
I
Yeah.
was right with you. It was really perplexing to me, and I really thought in the second one I was being really careful. I was really looking. I was trying to make sure I didn't make the same mistake again. And I will tell you, he was just brilliant at
Covert,
lying. There,
covert operations.
yeah, I mean, Nate, I don't know, he was a brilliant liar. So good that I could have experienced the exact same thing that he experienced, and he would tell me a fabricated version of it, and I would stop and go, no, no, that's really not what happened. I was there. But his lie was so convincing that it would make me stop and think, is that what happened? No, that's really not what happened. That it was just that it was that good. And so it took a while. One of the problems is they just can't hold the mask up forever. And so over time, the mask drops, and you start to see the issues behind narcissistic personality disorder.
How
And it
come the
was,
feds? Didn't mean to cut you off. How come the feds, the military investigators, didn't dig deep enough into if somebody going into your computer and they're cutting your software on and you got classified documents that you are privileged to, you had to have told them what was going on. Did they find your story to be bizarre, not worth investigating, or did he come in behind the scenes and, like you said, told them a story that you begin to ask yourself, could he be telling the truth?
no, they knew that the signal was coming from his computer. They had confiscated all of his computer, and it was, behind cipher locks. Like, he was still actively supporting the government, not as a Navy SEAL, but as a government employee in a very isolated area that was high security and high secrecy. So they did go in, they did find that his computer was in fact turning on and turning off my email to be forwarded to him. And they documented that. They decided that they did not want to be in the middle of a domestic dispute. The FBI didn't want to be in the middle of a domestic dispute, and neither did Navy Criminal Investigative Service. So they documented it, and I took it to the judge of the divorce court that we were in. And, really at that point, it was a battle over finances, over children, over the rest, even though we were divorced.
What was the end game for him going into your military computer to begin with? I mean, like, you're not swapping romantic information with top secret files at the disposal. It don't make any sense.
He was accessing my correspondence with my legal team.
Oh, getting the heads up on what's going on. Wow.
He's a man who didn't believe rules applied to him. And I saw that through the marriage. I don't know if that's just a Navy SEAL. They're taught that, they're going to infiltrate, they're going to overcome, they're going to scale walls and go through barricades. But he really, truly didn't seem to believe rules applied to him. And in some way, this gave him a sense of control. I think part of what, when I don't think his narcissistic personality disorder was as bad when we began our marriage as it was when we ended. And I think part of that is because as we moved from my job to, my job moving us, now I'm a commanding officer. I have 120 people reporting to me. I'm in the news each week. I'm in the newspaper. I'm on TV. I'm getting keys to the city. They're commissioning paintings for me. It's a lot of visibility and a lot of accolades. And he was not. He was, working from home, not even going to an office. So his feelings of lack began to really frustrate him, and so he was constantly trying to bring up, how much money he made, and that, he's worth something, right? And I would say, look, who cares? It doesn't, but ultimately he just kept throwing that out and throwing that out. And I finally said, if you look at take home pay, actually, after taxes, I'm making more than you. So let's just not talk about that anymore. Because he just was struggling. His ego took a hit with my success. I was promoted a year below zone, ahead of my peers. I had 3 commanding officer tours in the course of my military career. Most people are really lucky if they have one. So my success, I think, just drove him more entrenched into his personality disorder.
What was it about the two men that intrigued you to begin with, outside of
So
them being
that's a
special
that's a very
forces?
I will tell you, in the very first one, very smart, very fun, a leader, battalion executive officer in our ROTC program, life of the party, one of the smartest people I've ever met, always organizing fun things, very competent, physically fit, um, just all, wooed me with every flower shop and every card in Hallmark. And when I would visit all of my foods, candles, the courting that goes on it's called love bombing for a reason. It was very effective in sort of wearing me down, because initially I actually was like, no, I'm not dating you. And initially I told husband number 1, no, I'm not dating you. And I would hide in the library from him, actually, so that he wouldn't, because I would come home and his house was close enough where he would see when I'd come home, and I think he looked out the window, and I'd get a phone call the moment I walked in the door. So I didn't trust my instincts adequately at all. And over time, I think I just equated this love bombing with real love, and grew to feel like he really did love me, and maybe I really did love him. And I really didn't think I could live with him without being married to him. Although now looking back on that, that would have been a really smart thing to do. I think I would have maybe seen the signs differently. But there was a lot that was very attractive on the outside. It was, you didn't see the problems, you didn't see the temper, you didn't see the physical, you didn't see the manipulation, you didn't see the lies up front. The things that were really problematic were just not visible to me.
How
And
long?
actually, I have to tell you this, Andre. There was a moment in time during our divorce process where I said, you're nothing like you portrayed yourself to be when we were dating. And you know what his answer was?
No.
He said, well, of course not. You would have never married me.
I guess that's the right word to say. But my question is, how long had you been in the military when you met husband number 1?
I was in ROTC in college. So
So at
we
college, and
it was
then
my freshman year that he began asking me to date him. I don't think I dated him until my sophomore year. And so it was my graduation. It was the weekend I graduated and was commissioned an officer in the Navy that I married him. So before I was really even on my own as a grown
how long
person.
did you stay? How long were you married to him while you was actively in the Navy? Husband number
Six
1.
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah, but I will tell you, year 1 was eye opening, and I knew we had problems. But you're married at that point, and you think, I've made a commitment to God and my family and country, and for till death do us part. So it really took the physical abuse before I was out of there. I mean, the emotional, I don't even think I recognized the emotional abuse until I was out of it as well. I'm walking on eggshells. He's yelling at me because the dog ate his shoe. He's yelling at me when he gets pulled over driving the car. There's stuff that happened that was nonsensical to me, but I don't think I really appreciated the impact of it until I got out of it.
It's funny, but you're in the Navy. Somebody is seeing activity, whether it's mom, whether it's dad, whether it's sister, whether it's brother, whether it's a couple. Somebody had to see something that wasn't, you ain't in the Navy being in the position that you're in, and people aren't trained to see what's going on.
So I'll tell you, he was very successful in the Navy. He was very successful in the Navy. My family saw it. They did not like him. They sort of let me know that, but not very clearly. I knew it in my heart, but we didn't have conversations about it. And I just thought, well, you don't really know him. My friends didn't really like him, but I thought, you just don't really know him. And so looking back, those were really key signals to me that I ignored. But if you looked at anybody that worked with him in the Navy, he was competent, capable, really a strong worker, hard worker, good at his job, very successful.
When you're in the Navy, you guys have a code of conduct, and you have a no talk type policy. What's in the Navy stays in the Navy. A lot of stuff aren't addressed in the Navy. A lot of stuff is kept secret in the Navy behind the walls. Were you able to have an outreach program during the first tribulation with this individual?
No, I really didn't tell anybody about all of his antics. No one, not my mom, not my sister. In fact, I really hurt their feelings. The first they knew there was a problem was when I called home and said, I'm leaving. They were like, wait, what? That was the first clue. The only person that really knew, I had a dear friend that was kind of someone I saw, my best girlfriend at the time. She saw scars on me. She was my vent person. I would talk to her about the things that frustrated me. And I'll tell you, she had an affair with him. And if I can honestly tell you that leaving that marriage was a relief, but losing my girlfriend and the betrayal of that, it was heartbreaking. Sorry.
You take your time. You want some water? You want some water? Okay. So my question is, how long was the affair going on with your husband and your best friend?
Yeah, I don't know. He told me after we were apart and at a point in time when they were going off on weekends together, but she and I were still doing things each week, talking regularly, and she didn't tell me. And that betrayal, like for her not to tell me was the huge betrayal. And for her, and also very like, I can't believe that you would enter a relationship. I mean, it's one thing for me to enter a relationship blind and not know all of this, but you know all of these things. You heard me talk about them. You've seen the blood of my body from when he hit me. You've seen the scarring you've seen bruises that were there 6 months. How is it possible that you would enter into a relationship with him? And I don't know the answer to that, because at the point in time when I discovered that they were in a relationship, I told both of them I never wanted to speak to either of them again, that they were just hereby out of my life. And so I grieved that. I used to have I kind of still grieve that loss of that girlfriend, because I feel like I don't know. She and I were really close, and that was a hard loss.
I think men and women grieve differently, because if that happened to me, I wouldn't be grieving.
You would be grieving.
No. Like, are they still together?
No, they didn't last very long. But
it's kind of surprising, because if they didn't last very long, it's usually most with women, I guess, they usually call back and say, hey, girl, I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah. I made a mistake, blah, 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 blah. That's never happened with her, I take it.
No. Well, I think there was a point in time. I remember one time my ex telling me that she wanted to talk with me, and I said, I'm not interested. There's nothing that she can say that's going to make this right.
So you wind up getting away from husband number one. He ain't been physically diagnosed with that
No,
famous word
no,
yet.
no,
So
no.
okay, so
Correct.
now you meet number two. Once
And
again,
number two was, a Navy SEAL. He'd been to the Naval Academy. He had 2 master's degrees. He was fit. He was good looking. He was sweet. He baked bread. He brought me bread. He made me music playlists. He again, very good at courting. We learned to cook together. We would go out and do night photography together. We had interests. We'd swim. We worked out. We just had a lot of fun together. And there were things that made me go, huh, at the time, but nothing that would reveal what I later
what
discovered.
made you go, huh, at the time? That just seems to be
No,
too good to be true.
No, it wasn't that. It was, an inappropriate relationship or what appeared to be an inappropriate relationship with another married woman. And me thinking, that doesn't look right. And him talking his way out of it
Wait a
and me
minute.
going,
Give me an example now.
so a card came in the mail and it was from this woman and it said, if ever I was to be deserted on a desert island, and I could only pick one person, I would choose you. Now, this is a married woman sending this to a married man. And then love whoever and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't like this. And he's like, oh, sense of humor, blah, blah, blah. And then this woman and her husband come over to dinner one time. And through the course of dinner, she's got her hands on him like a lot, not just like a touch and a hold for a long time. She overtly is thanking him for dinner repeatedly. He has done nothing. He's done nothing for dinner. Like, I've done the whole thing, right? I've set the table, I've created, I've presented. And then afterwards she's thanking him and inviting us to go skiing. And when they walked out the door, I said, yeah, that's not happening. And he's like, why not? And I'm like, I don't think it's appropriate. Later, later I found out, I do believe that there was more involved in that. I just do. Things like I found red thong underwear in my laundry in a place that wouldn't mind in my home. He said it was the nanny's. I'm like, the nanny doesn't do her laundry here. And if it was the nanny's, why are, just things.
Where was this lady's husband at the dinner table?
He was there. He was there watching it all.
And
Uh,
he never said one word.
Not one word. No. And I think, you could look on it innocently and think, well, they're just very good friends that go way back. But in isolation, it wasn't enough to go, I'm out of here, right?
Yeah.
There was nothing that happened in isolation that made you say, oh, no. But when you look backwards at the list of the events and the times and the times and the time, then it makes you think, this was a lie, and that was a lie. And when your hair on the back of your neck stood up on that time, that was a lie. There was, why does he have no contact with any of his? He had 2 daughters from a previous marriage. He'd given him up for adoption. There was no contact there. He concocted this very ornate story about why that was. Well, I later met that mom and the ex-wife of his by chance, actually. It was kind of a crazy coincidence. And there's a whole other part of that story that's just, he's actually at fault and he was cheating on her. So there's just a lot. He's just really was a very good liar.
I'm gonna ask you a question, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way to the listeners and to the thing, but because you live such a well orchestrated life as a child growing up, military family, was a sense of longing missing here with these two individuals for you?
I don't think so. I had a great relationship with my dad. I had a great relationship with my mom. I wasn't, I was very happy in the Navy.
Mhm.
I will tell you, I met with therapists for a long time and said, how did I miss this? And they all say, because they're really good. They're very charming. They are just that good. And you can't beat yourself up because you missed it. And you can only be grateful to be out of it.
Well, it's kind of like it makes me nervous. These are people that we trust our country to as well, that is camouflaged with this behavior pattern.
Well,
Does that
I don't
say
think.
does that say that there's not does that say that there's not adequate sociological material for people that go into the armed forces as well as our police department, our law enforcement? Where do we draw the line, and do we need, based on what you've gone through, do we need to reevaluate things such as this?
I don't think it's easy to get a diagnosis or even assess it easily. It's just not an easy assessment. And I don't know that, certainly there are as many narcissists inside the military as outside the military, I would suspect. And I think they're fairly well hidden. They are so all about image that they can make it all the way to presidents. They narcissists can be very successful in what they do because of some of the other traits that they have. And I think that it's there's a scale. Like there's, your ones that are really, really problematic and toxic, and the ones, we probably all fall somewhere along a scale. And I think how they are with other people isn't necessarily, well, how they appear to be with other people. It's the day in and day out that's hard for them. So an outsider looking in would see somebody volunteering, somebody making a lot of fun happen, somebody who's cheerful and appears to be very sweet. Behind closed doors come the very disrespectful behaviors.
But you have, excuse me, but you have children by at least
Okay.
one of them.
Two.
How did that affect your children and you raising your children?
Very severely, because he violated boundaries, and I don't talk about their story.
Right.
My daughters, my one of my daughters talks quite verbally about her story, but they were in therapy from the moment we separated and have remained in therapy most of their lives. One daughter pursued a master's degree in counseling because she found it to be so helpful. The other channeled her anger and frustration around her biological dad into the gym and became not just a national champion powerlifter, but a world third place at world powerlifting and a very successful fitness coach. That daughter went to the Naval Academy. The other daughter went to the Air Force Academy. Both pursued military careers and were very successful. But we had a lot of conversations around, and not easy to try to navigate. You need to respect adults and what they say, but not always your dad. Like, he can't touch you. He can't do some of these. He can't be in bed with you. He can't show television or books that are inappropriate. Like, so how do you teach a young 7-year-old that, you want to be appropriately respectful of adults, but this adult is unique. And so we would talk about him, and one of the problems with narcissists is they are the victim. And so he would cry physically in their like get on his hands and knees and cry in the driveway as we would drive away. And the girls would feel really bad for him, or he would call and say, I can't live without you. I miss you so much. And play the victim card. Never, so that's called parentification. And he basically was looking for them to parent him, even though they were tiny. And so there were a lot of things to overcome. And there's, then when you're apart and he has custody, you're worrying. He's doing stupid stuff like one day he was going to take both of them into the ocean to learn to scuba dive. Well, they were 4 and 7 and didn't really swim that well. And I had fits about that's not safe. And he said, I'm the best swimmer. I'm the best instructor in the planet. Of course they'll be fine. And I'm like, no, this is, and there's nobody that could stop him. I called the police and said, can you stop him from taking them scuba diving? No. Can anybody, I got the therapist and said, can you try to talk him out of this? He would lock the house when he had them alone, and he would go running in the morning at 5:30 in the morning and just lock the two girls alone in the house at age, yeah, actually I think that was as young as 3 and 6. So and you couldn't argue with him. Like, he was right, and there was no arguing with him. There were, to say there weren't challenges, I can't even begin to describe how hard it was on the girls and on me trying to protect the girls, because that was my highest priority, was trying to protect the girls.
Where was child services, and were you still in the Navy as a commanding officer during this time?
Yes, I was, and they were involved. There was one year that he had no visitation. There was another year where it was supervised visitation. The court tried to step in, but he had a very good lawyer, and his lawyer made it look like I was, blowing things out of proportion. And honestly, when you looked at the things he did that were so stupid, you would think that that's crazy. There was fires and ash falling from the ground. Everyone's supposed to stay inside, especially old people and children. And he wants to take them on a bike ride. And I'm like, no, you can't have the bikes and take them on a bike ride. And he's like, no, they're fine. He just, like, for being somebody that had 2 master's degrees, but it was, he was going to do what he wanted as he wanted. There was no talking him out of it. And that doesn't include, money stolen or just the
How did you guys manage to keep your career? Sound like to me you guys would have both been on the borderline of being dishonorable discharged.
Well, I think he should have been I think he should have lost his security clearance with the computer issues, and I think that he should have been fired, but he was not. I don't actually know how he got through that, but I will say I still did a great job. I really did. I know I burned the candle at both ends. I would do all of the legal work I was doing at night after the girls were in bed, because I never wanted them to see any of the paperwork on that. I didn't even want them to know the fight was going on. So it was invisible as much as possible to the girls. They would have psychiatric evaluations. We all did. But I was still doing my day job. I had a nanny that took care of them during the day, and that helped a lot. But there were visits, and I will say, the military does try hard to take care of you as an individual. At least they did for me. I had very supportive bosses who, if I needed to take the day and be in court, you're certainly going to take the day and be in court. That it was what it was. So
How did this you mentioned the symptoms that you was having, you think were related to their illnesses. How did you come up with that conclusion?
Are you saying my illness, my symptoms?
Yeah, the things that you was going through health wise.
So that's a brilliant question, Andre. So I will tell you, it never occurred to me until I was at the emergency room with him, with the husband number 2, after we'd separated, and he was what eventually turned out to be a panic attack, but he thought he was having a heart attack, and he asked me to take him, and I did. And I was explaining to the doctor, he's going through a lot because we're divorcing. I'm very ill. I've got, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, postural orthostatic tachycardia, migraines, all of these things going on. And I just, he's in the middle of what appears to be some kind of a heart attack symptom. And he said, and I said, I told him that he was had narcissistic personality disorder and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And the guy said, well, of course you have all these autoimmune issues. You're living with a narcissist. And he recommended a book by Dr. Candace Pert called The Molecules of Emotion. And he said, you need to read this book. And that book was life changing for me because it showed how the science of emotion affects how emotion affects our cells, how it creates illness and disease.
Hmm.
And basically what I learned after reading this book was, there was a part of me that was just working hard to plug through. And and any kind of self-care felt very selfish in the midst of all of this.
Mm.
After reading that book, I realized that this could kill me. Like all the trauma, I had PTSD from the courtroom. I had all sorts of things going on, and that if I didn't do a better job of taking care of me, that this could breed even more issues. I was much more likely for cancer or other large diseases as a result of the autoimmune disorders. And so I began to shift my thinking around self-care in that moment to self-preservation first and the girls second. And that was very hard. It's like putting your own oxygen mask on first and then second. But it was very clear when you actually read the science that emotions and the kind of trauma that I was enduring could in fact create this kind of disease.
Man, let's go to the last husband that you
Sure.
unfortunately lost a passing to, but you was also now not only dealing with your own symptoms, but now you have to take care of husband number three. Tell me what that journey was like for you.
So first, it started off as I'm never dating again, as we mentioned, and I had the great fortune of sitting next to him at a gala that he was a VIP. He was a carrier air wing commander in the Navy. Had just brought the Ronald Reagan around to San Diego, and I ended up sitting next to him, and he was very much a gentleman, and we had a really lovely time, and he had a couple friends there, and they facilitated all of these group events because I wasn't dating. I really wasn't dating. So it was group event, group event, group event, group event, and over time we became very good friends, and he just parted the clouds and brought in the sun in a way that I can't describe. And for the first time I listened to the hairs on the back of my neck, and I listened to the warm fuzzy feelings, and I was like, you know what? My intuition on this one is that this is a really healthy, good thing. But I was never going to get married again. And over time, the girls got to know him. We actually did begin to date, and I totally love of my life. Like he was so I was so afraid of marriage because I was afraid what I was looking at was not what was going to be on the other side of the marriage, right?
Mhm.
Once I marry him, he's going to be a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde again, and I'm going to kick myself or what are you thinking? But in this particular instance, Jim was actually better every day better than I ever thought a human could be. He was just the best man on the planet. And I had a very blessed 20 years with him, 17 married, and 4 years, well, now 5 years ago or sometime, he was diagnosed with early Alzheimer's. And that was heartbreaking, but I just refused to believe it initially. We're going to fight this. We're going to turn it around. We're going to beat it. And I'm going to find a modality that fixes this. And we're going to do all the things. And we did all the things. So that became my number one mission, is saving his life, because he couldn't, because over time he became ultimately a child, like a 4-year-old couldn't get a glass of water. And we were trying everything from hyperbaric chamber, ozone therapy, pulse electromagnetic frequency, DNA testing. We did all of Dr. Bredeson's protocol. We did a mold detoxification. We had a very clean diet, exercise, training, all the things, hormone balancing. I can't even describe. I like it, hydrogen, water, microcurrent, you name it. We tried it. Nothing worked. We even went out of country on 4 occasions to get stem cells. And all of these things that we were doing for him, I did for me too, because I'm still suffering with all those autoimmune disorders, right? And on top of that, now a care provider, and on top of that, the sole breadwinner now. And so Nothing worked, nothing worked, nothing worked. And ultimately I found something that did work. There were this light therapy technology that activates your own body's foundational cells and improves your mitochondria function. And in doing that, my husband, in the very first week of utilizing these patches, went from not engaging anymore and essentially a zombie in a shell of his former self into engaging, funny, flirty again. Jim was the funniest man I've ever met in my life, and he lived to be funny. So when he had contracted into a human that didn't even try to be funny, that wasn't even who he was. But in a week, I got that back. He didn't take the 3.5 hour nap anymore. He really, his hair grew back. His sense of smell that he'd lost 20 years ago came back. He just had all of this. There was so much hope. And on top of that, my depression lifted. My symptoms of autoimmune went away. My pain went away from a broken foot and a sprained ankle. All of the things were really improving. So I had a lot of hope that these could save his life. And ultimately, it did not. It did improve his quality of life, and I had him, literally the essence of him, for another 18 months. But we didn't start early enough. So the journey was one of heartache, of watching your husband disintegrate in front of your eyes until death is a blessing, and you recognize that it's really time to let go and the fight is lost. And that was incredibly hard. And this whole, so it'll be a year in 5 days that he passed away. This has been one of the toughest years of my life. And I really believe that if we would have been able to get these patches and this technology earlier, maybe he would still be with me, because my recovery was so dramatic. I know that they can like miracles, but it just wasn't enough, which is part of why I talk, because at the time this was not visible. I Googled, I did research, I looked everywhere, and I did not find this. This happened to be presented to me by my hairdresser, who said, I have a friend who's doing this thing. I know you've gone out of country for stem cells. She's saying that you can activate your own in this technology. And I didn't believe it, but I was desperate. So I thought, well, I'll give it a try.
I know about the mitochondria. I know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse where all cell or matter is converted into energy into the human body. I'm trying to think what's its relations to possibly prolonging or maybe doing something with Alzheimer's. Can you shed a little bit of light on that?
Well, I think, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I will say everything that I've learned about disease starts with sort of mitochondria dysfunction and cellular dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And when we try to figure out how to improve mitochondrial health, it's not an easy thing to do. I was actually looking for ways to improve his mitochondrial health before I ran across this. The other thing is that there are peptides are all the rage right now, Andre, and people have heard of a lot of peptides, but not many people have heard of what is perhaps the most powerful peptide in our body, called GHKCU. And one of the most powerful things about GHKCU, which is actually done by a lot of clinics for injections, that it has been studied very rigorously for 50 years with double-blind placebo-controlled studies. And we know that when you elevate your body's GHKCU or copper peptide, that it improves your stem cells, that it resets genes to a younger, healthier state, that it produces growth, and it improves mitochondria, it improves brain and nerves, it improves heart and healing and tissue. It even resets the programmed cell death of cancer cells without affecting healthy cells. This is all proven by GHKCU stuff, but what I discovered was, here I found a technology that elevates your own body's production of GHKCU, and it's patented to do so and available in 82 countries. And amongst the benefits of elevating that GHKCU includes the mitochondria health. And actually, they've studied it and they see improvement in the mitochondria as quickly as 2 hours of wearing, this tiny little quarter-sized patch.
So you have the patch on currently right now.
I do.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I'm
do.
I'm a firm believer in understanding the importance of keeping the mitochondria active in this role in helping provide proper nutrients and energy to the other cells. Um,
That's right.
this technology or this new technology, is it available in the United States, or how can people get a hold of it or get more research on it?
Yeah, it is not only available in the United States, it's available in 82 countries. It's the fastest growing company in the direct sales market anywhere. And that's because it's been so powerful in helping with, I mean, what don't your stem cells help, right? When you're 30, half of your stem cells are dormant, and when you're 60, they're almost all dormant. And the ability to wake those up and get them to go to work for you is a very powerful thing. So not only are they available, there's no prescription required, because guess what? They're non-transdermal. Nothing is going in the skin. It's just light therapy. So it's like a little mirror reflecting your own body's light back at you at a specific wavelength, causing these cellular changes to occur. Just like when you go out in the sun and your body makes vitamin D, that's photobiomodulation. That's what these are doing. And so they're not only safe, they just get mailed to your door in a little envelope, and then you begin wearing them. There's no contraindications to any medicines that people are on. In fact, you can come off, I'm off of all medications. I don't have to take a thyroid medicine anymore. I was on thyroid medicine for 30, 40, 35 years.
But
I
is
was
this
on,
stuff
you know,
patent? Is it controlled?
patented,
I mean, how was the studies being done, and what kind of
patented.
studies have been done to show this? Because anytime you hear the word marketing,
Yeah,
I think we think pyramid. We think, if this is such
yeah,
revolutionary, why hasn't a company like Eli Lilly's or somebody
yeah.
taken this technology and done something different with it? So what's the take on that?
So the company invested 10 years in stem cell research and has been around 20 years. The the There are over 130 clinical studies, many double-blind, placebo-controlled, many published. Big pharma would love to get their hands on this, but it's patented, and this company doesn't want to have any. I mean, this founder and inventor would prefer that we not have to be on pharmaceuticals, because every pharmaceutical has a nutritional and biological cost. There is an outcome. And so the less that we can be on those, the better our own health. But not to say that they don't have their place. And I'm not saying that they don't. Some people need them. They need to be, just to survive. There are emergency situations. But from a holistic health perspective, not being on them, if you don't have to be, is better. So not being on any migraine medicine, or not being on a blood pressure medicine to increase my blood pressure to keep me from fainting. I was on that for 20 years. Those things matter. And so one of the problems, he looked at, okay, we could put this in a GNC, we could sit it in a shelf, and nobody would know what to do with it. And there's a delight that I have had in helping people with their health and sharing my story, my testimony, and the science, and the more about the product, and then holding their hand through the process. Okay, you have to drink water. You need to wear it 12 hours on, and you take it off for 12 hours. Here are the different kinds of patches. There are more than just one, but there's one really powerful one. And so there's an element of hand holding. When it first came out and the inventor was deciding how to market this, he was absolutely opposed to any kind of direct sales because of previous bad taste in his mouth from other companies. And yet what he saw was, in the period of just weeks, there was this wildfire spreading of experience that ended up having him talking to Coach Richard Quick, who was the Stanford swim team, and then the Olympic swim team, and then now the patches are on all the Olympians that are in the swim team, and they're breaking their personal records in not just the competition pools, but also in
Well,
practice.
wouldn't that be against Olympic
It's not,
violations
no,
because
a
it's
full,
just like steroids?
no, there is no steroid. There's nothing going in the skin. Light only. There's no drug. There's no pharmaceutical. There's literally, you can actually take this patch and I could put it on the top of my shirt and I could just wear it right there all day long and it's still going to have the same effect. It's still going to reflect light and go through the skin and work. And
So
so they did a full examination.
what's going into the skin? I'm trying to
Light.
educate the viewer. So you just getting pure light. There's nothing on the patch except for
Light.
light.
It's like a little double-sided mirror. It can be this direction, it can be this direction. There's a sticker, so it sticks to the shoulder. I actually have I've one on my shoulder because I've got a little pickleball injury. I found 8 hours of pickleball in 3 days is too much for me. So I've got one right there to help reduce inflammation and increase my healing. And we've actually seen studies that show that the healing can improve by 50%. I want you to think about when you go outside, the sun hits your skin and your body makes vitamin D. There's nothing besides light going in your skin and your body responds to that light and makes vitamin D. So I also can look at you with night vision goggles on, very military oriented here, and I can see that there's light inside of you. You glow. So this is like a little mirror and it's got a lattice structure that is specific to each kind of patch, and the lattice structure reflects your body's light and that heat, and it basically creates a signal. It's a signaling mechanism to tell the body, wake up and do these things. So it's more of a light communication signals, and we typically are wearing them along acupressure points, along what's like our fiber optic cables in our body, are there all those acupressure points.
Now, you're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. You came off of your medication with this, but are you sound enough to tell somebody to do this without getting their doctor's medical advice?
People are perfectly encouraged to talk to your doctor about light therapy. Ask your doctor, is light therapy okay? Do you care if I'm in an infrared sauna? Do you care if I go sit in the sun? Do you care if I do light therapy?
Mm-hmm.
Most doctors are going to say, have at it. There's nothing harmful about it. We only know there's good things that happen. So, but feel free. But I have absolutely no qualms. The only people that I am concerned about wearing these, I put this on my 3-month-old grandbaby and my 90-year-old dad. There's just no limit. But I did have one client who had a kidney transplant. She had one kidney and it was a transplanted kidney and it was not doing very well. And I would not put her on there are some patches I would put her on, but not the main patch that is activating and elevating copper peptide, because it improves the immune system so much. And I said, we can put you on this patch when you're signed up with your doctor and you're getting regular checkups to test your immune system, because I don't want your immune system to get so good that it basically starts to fight with your transported kidney. And she worked very closely with her doctor, and they in fact did put her on the patches, and they did watch it, and it did boost her immune system, but not, we basically regulated it and we made sure that it didn't boost it too high, but just high enough for her kidney to start functioning better again, which it did dramatically. Actually, she had all sorts of amazing results.
The big question before we wrap up, what's it cost? At the end of the day, it costs to use this stuff. Is it affordable, or what's
the question? So let's start by saying that when I went out of country and I got stem cells that didn't work, I spent $20,000 on IVs and injections each time for both me and my husband. So that's $20,000, $20,000, $20,000. That's $80,000 plus twice. So this patch, one activation patch that's the most powerful patch that you could just wear one every day is less than $3.50 a day. So less than a cup of coffee, a total of $99 for a 1 month supply. It can be as high as 100 and I think it's 87 on Amazon, but it's like 150 retail, and we can get it for you at wholesale at $99 a month. So it is very, in my opinion, particularly when I considered how much I paid outrageous amounts for hyperbaric chamber. All of the alternative modalities are expensive. This is the least expensive one I found and the most effective.
So there's other companies that manufacture this particular item.
No. This is the only one. It's patented and the only company in the world. We are the only company in the world that manufactures these patches. There are other patches in this company lineup, like one that elevates glutathione, one that reduces inflammation, one that eliminates pain, one that elevates a daughter peptide called AHKCU that's found in the brain and the heart and the muscle and improves bone density and muscle mass. So there are various patches, but the one singular patch that everyone really is, if you only did one and you could start with only one, that would be the one that elevates the copper peptide. Because it's known to actually, in 6 weeks of wearing that patch, the cardiovascular system becomes 8 weeks younger. 8 weeks younger. And there are studies, double-blind placebo-controlled studies that prove that. There's also a study on the brain, and you can see it on my website. You can actually see the visual of the EEG images before patching, all this redness and inflammation in the brain and hypercoherence where not good crosstalk from the left and right hemisphere, to 3 weeks later, you have a changed EEG in multiple colors and less reduction, much reduction in the inflammation, to 6 weeks later and a whole new brain imaging with decreased brain inflammation and improved nervous system. And this is also a double-blind placebo control. And they even saw cell and nerve regeneration. So there are lots of studies, there's lots of science, and this is the only company in the world that has this technology.
So is this stuff only usable outside in natural sunlight?
No, you're your own light source. It's there are even night patches. It doesn't require any outside light because you glow. You are the light source.
It sounds like a winner. I tell you what, you have provided a great story, great information. How can the viewers reach out to you to know more about this remarkable new innovation treatment? How can they reach out?
So my website is iamreverseaging.com. That's iamreverseaging.com. And I want to say from that website, you can actually look at the science. You can look at the talks that I've done where I talk about it. You can hear the inventor and the owner describe it. You can see all the differences around the patches. And by the way, part of why I have my website, what it's called, is that I am 61 years old. And in the year that my husband died, I had blood work drawn. Do you know my biological age is actually 40? With my life, I would have expected it to be 80. I wasn't sure what it was going to look like. But I was very thrilled. And that's 100% the patches. And I can honestly tell you that it would not have been that way 3 years ago. I've been wearing these patches now 3 years, and they are life-changing. And I love helping people. People can reach out to me and connect from my website, and it's complimentary. I will work with, what are your issues? What are you trying to do? And we'll get you set up. It's just really, it's a no-brainer. There's even a money-back guarantee. It's just really not that hard.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Darlene, for taking time out to come on the show and spread such valuable information. Make sure you guys click, share, like. All it takes is one click of a button to make a difference in somebody else's life as well as your own. Reach out to Darlene if you want to know more about this revolutionary science and treatment to, let's call it what it is, rejuvenate. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of Andre the Beast Creighton Show.
you.